Today we're focusing on the top 10 loadouts in Warzone, and we'll start how we normally do through the experimental class. First up, the KG is a weapon that I really haven't seen used much, even though it has by far some of the lowest recoil in all of Warzone, which usually kind of pushes it towards the noob friendly side, like the M13, the Grau, the Kilo, that basically have no recoil, easy to use, and usually below average to average players tend to kind of lean towards if they struggle with the weapons that are a little bit higher up on this list that maybe require just a little bit of skill to control, even though at the end of the day, there's not really much recoil in Warzone. So the class setup for that one that I would recommend trying out if you feel like you're in that niche and really haven't found something or missing too many shots with the stuff at the top, you can go with the MX silencer, the shrouded, the hand stop, the 60 round drum, and specifically this one, the .30 to 06, just because it's a little bit more forgiving, lengthened, polymer, tight grip on hand for the little bit better aim down sight, and then 2.5 or the 3 to 6X with the Krasnik 12V. And that's kind of that loadout. We'll get into this one when we get a little bit higher up in the loadouts for the Type 100. And then we are rocking Quick Fix, Overkill, Amped, and generally this is going to be a good go-to. You could go ahead and run Cold-Blooded, EOD, as people are still running double time, which doesn't really help that much. And then we got Combat Scout, Amp, besides that, and then Overkill, you could either go Tempered, Ghost, High Alert, and then those are kind of the main options there. And then I'm rocking the Throwing Knife and the Tactical, which is the Stim, because Stim is basically as good as it gets right now, unless you want to use the snapshots. Those are probably the main two that I would use. Then I got two loadouts right here, which are essentially the second loadout if you're grabbing perks, or if you want to grab these right off the bat, and then maybe find a secondary weapon that'll fill that need, maybe a meta weapon that somebody you go ahead and kill. Pretty much we're rocking Tempered and Ghost, and that's the only difference there is that perk is changing. We're rocking an STG, and the main reason for that is because we get fully loaded. For the longest, this used to be the Grau, but this thing is a little bit better than the Grau, and you still get fully loaded, which is nice for when you're regaining. So we got MX Silencer, the VDD 760, the 2.5 or the 3 to 6, weighted, focus, which is pretty good, or nerves of steel, because this will increase your accuracy while injured. So if somebody shoots you, it's kind of doing the same thing as the flinch resistance. I wouldn't necessarily go with vital because it will hurt your recoil. Go for it if you want, but you're not really getting much out of it. And then we got fully loaded polymer, the Gorenko 50 round. Some people are liking the 60 round Kurs or the 45. More power to you, whatever you shoot straight with. This is my preference. Then we got lengthen, and then I prefer the Carver on it, but a lot of people are going to hand stop as well. It just kind of depends on how you want to use the weapon. Either way, I feel like I can shoot straight with that. Then we got the Amp that kind of replaced the Diamatti in the non-overkill classes, and because this will allow you to win that 1 or 2 gunfights, that'll allow you to pick up another weapon. You definitely want to swap this out. As soon as you get done with that fight, you clean up somebody, loot them, go ahead and take their Welgun, Owen gun, Armaguerra, whatever the case is, and rock it with that. And that class setup is Agency Task Force, Ember Sighting, 30 round fast, and then the Serpent Wrap. And that gets us into the top 7, which will include a couple different sniper builds. Unfortunately, snipers did get nerfed pretty hard, and it's kind of forced people to use a couple for long range, and then obviously on Rebirth, maybe you still stick with the same Swiss and Car 98. They're just not as effective at getting those one-shot kills, so you have to be prepared for that. So HDR, pretty straightforward build, up to infinity, almost no bullet drop, super easy to use, a little bit slower aim down sight, but it is a long-range sniper. So monolithic HDR Pro, and then we got the TAC laser, variable zoom, and then the FTAC Stalker Scout. You could get rid of the variable zoom and put on a perk for focus if you want to reduce flinch. But odds are, if you're hitting people at the true distance of these guns, you're probably not going to be getting all that much flinch. So it's going to be hard for them to land shots if they're not rocking a sniper. And then we got this straight Volk, which this one's a build that True Game Data kind of gassed up over on Twitter. Kind of a gimmicky build because it's mainly all about strafe speed, but it can be fun. Its TTK isn't like off the charts ridiculous, but because it is a rifle, it does have much better ranges than a lot of the SMGs. So it will excel in that like 12 to 20-ish meters where a lot of SMGs start to struggle in those engagements. And it kind of replaces the AK-47 because of the nerfs it had. It's a little bit harder to use and stuff like that. So we got recoil booster, VDD 287. So it's all geared towards strafe speed, mobility, and being able to hit your shots. So slate reflector, the Reisdorf adjustable steady, which is also something that's going to help with your ADS firing movement speed. So when you fire, you'll be able to strafe that way. On hand for better aim down sight. I think the difference in his build is he went with gung ho, but with this build, I guess you could go gung ho, but So primarily, it's all about strafing. You're more likely going to be ADS, where the sprint to fire won't impact it as much. So I guess it depends on your play style. Then we got polymer, the 60 round Kurs, subsonic, because we do have a little bit extra range to play with, and then the M3 ready grip. Then we got the ZRG, which is the wrap suppressor combat recon 5 milliwatt laser for faster aim down sight, airborne elastic wrap, and then the 5 round mag. And then this brings us to the Milano, which has kind of been all around good sniper support for a little bit and kind of moves up a little bit because of the AK-47 nerfs. Even though the AK-47 is still pretty reliable, it feels a little bit more like an AMAX now. Agency suppressor, Ranger, the Axle Arms 3X, Raider stock, and then the 55 round drum. And we're using the Ranger for the better bullet velocity over using something like the Task Force, which could hurt the recoil a little bit, even though this gun doesn't really have much recoil. And that brings us up here, and this is the range where it gets a little bit wonky, where you could throw a lot of different guns in this area. People are going to ask in the comment section, what about the bar? What about the Grau? What about the Kilo? What about the AK-47? What about the XYZ gun? What about the Lapa? What about the OTS? What about the Bison? What about the Bullfrog? What about the whatever? There's only so many spots. I'm sorry, they can't all make it in. These are primarily what I would use. You could still use all that stuff if you're having fun. That's the point. If you're not having fun with the guns you're using, I mean, maybe it's not for you. But these are what I would use if you're trying to at least stay in the realm of being fairly competitive or super viable in all of your engagements. So right here we have the FARA, which the FARA right here is rocking the Groove suppressor. We have the Liberator barrel. This gives it a little bit faster aim down sight. And you could go the 45 round speed mag if you're playing like solos or duos, and you can get away with this. This build is nice. I've used it multiple. I've even showed off a little bit of gameplay on the second channel. But if you feel like you want a little bit better bullet velocity, just keep in mind you're going to be a little bit slower and you're playing trios or quads. This is the route you'd go. So you got a couple alternatives there. The Meta MP40 really hasn't changed. Even though it got nerfed, this is still pretty much a solid build. Recoil booster, the short, slate reflector, crossneck folding, brace, quick, polymer, Gorenko 45, lengthen, and then the hand stop. And this is the Vargo, which has kind of been a sleeper for a little while. I think it has a little bit easier recoil than the XM4, which we'll talk about. But the Vargo is one of those ones where you had to unlock it. I would definitely unlock it if you enjoy the XM4 or want to enjoy the XM4, but that initial kick is just a little too much for you. I know a lot of people on console mention this, even though I've tried it on the Xbox One, and I didn't really feel that, but to each their own depending on your settings. So the Vargo, we got the Groove suppressor, Task Force, Spetsnaz 60 round, and then the 3X. Fairly good gun, easy to use. And then we have the Strafe Type 100 build, which again, this one came out of True Game Data. He did kind of a video on strafing. And a lot of people asked me to go check this one out, and this kind of where I tested it. Gun feels good, and I did have gameplay over on my second channel with this gun as well. So we got recoil booster, the light, slate reflector, the Warubachi grip folding, sleight of hand, quick, grooved, Russian short. And the main reason we're using sleight of hand instead of gung-ho in this scenario is SMGs typically have a little bit better sprint out times, but because we only have the 36 round mag, it could put you in compromised positions. Even in duos, you can get in compromised positions. We got subsonic because the range on this is typically better than most SMGs. And then we got the compact, which all aligns with strafing speed. And even though the TTK isn't insane off the chart, really easy to use, low recoil, bullet velocity is okay. But the thing is that strafe speed, so you make yourself a little bit harder target to hit. And as a controller player, you're going to get that sticky aim assist by strafing hard, while they're going to lose aim assist on you. So that's kind of how that goes. Then it brings us to the Automaton, which is one of those ones that its TTK isn't special, but it's really easy to use, and pretty much almost anyone can shoot it straight if you have some basic recoil control fundamentals. That one's pretty much similar build, MX silencer, the 600 BFA, 2.5 or the 3-6, depending on what mode you play. The Anastasia padded, tight grip, on hand for the faster aim down sight, but you could always switch that to fully loaded. And then we got polymer, 75 round drum, lengthen, and then hand stop, or the Carver. In this case, I think the hand stop feels better. Then we got this gun that a lot of people don't necessarily use right off the bat, just because you have to do some special challenges to unlock it. But the Armaguerra is a very solid gun, especially after the buffs. It was good before the buffs, but now it's kind of easier to use. Recoil booster, the body 315 millimeter slate, folding, hard scoped, quick polymer lengthened 60 round mag, and then hand stop. This thing doesn't have a ton of recoil. It shoots straight, fairly easy to use, but the mobility is pretty good on it as well. Maybe not cracked out like over the top like some of the other builds we talked about, but it is pretty solid. And then this is where it kind of gets the debate. I kind of mix these on purpose because I put meta chasers out here, but overall these ones are kind of tied depending on how you want to use them and how you want to play. But before we jump into that, I want to let you guys know that my partners over at GamerVantage boosted my promo code to 20% off, whether you use the link in the description or just code JGOD at checkout. So if you're in the need for some new frames or new lenses that have blue light protection because you spend a lot of time on screens, whether it's your tablet, monitor, cell phone, if it's a lot of time, like 6 to 8 hours a day, you probably want to go ahead and protect your eyes, and you can use that with prescription sunglasses, or you can get these wonky frames that are very durable. You can bend them and then they're not going to break in case you are prone to breaking your glasses. So that is linked near the top of the description. Just want to give you guys a heads up. It is for the next 6 days. We'll go ahead and start off with the XM4, which is a build that really hasn't changed. It actually got a buff and less people started using it because it kind of got a little bit mixed up in the patch notes because it was a buff and a nerf, but mostly for long range it got buffed. So the XM4 is only better than it was before, and it was meta before, so it should still be meta, right? That's kind of how it works. So this one's Agency Task Force Field Agent 60 round with the 3X. If you're on console, sometimes people will use the 2X because of the way the FOV adjustment is. It'll be a little bit easier to control for you, at least visually, even though the recoil patterns are the same. Then we got the Owen gun, which is still pretty solid. The attachments kind of changed a little bit depending on what mode you want to play in. We talked a little bit about this in a full-length video on the Owen gun, where there's like 40 different builds you can use. This is a general one that works for most occasions. Recoil, shrouded, hand stop, Gorenko, lengthened, fabric, acrobatic, quick, remove stock, and then the night R, or you can use a reflex, or you can use the hybrid reflex where you drop it when you adjust it so you can get the smaller view of that as well. And then we got, last but not least, we got the STG build, which coincidentally got buffed as part of a blueprint, as part of the Godzilla skin. Overall, I still think that the XM4 is slightly better than it, but that's just based off preference. I think it's a good gun. It melts pretty good. I just feel like I'd rather have 60 bullets instead of 50. But it is what it is, right? So this is very similar to what we saw before, and we already talked about nerves of steel, fully loaded polymer, Gorenko 50, lengthened hand stop, or the Carver MX silencer 760mm, 2.5 or 3.6x, and then we have the 34S weighted. Then we got the Welgun, which is kind of tied with the Owen gun and the Armaguerra. Obviously, if you don't have the Armaguerra unlocked and you're playing low modes, Welgun is probably it for you. If you prefer to push 3 or 4 people or have to not reload and get caught off guard, then the Owen gun is probably, you know, the most versatile because damage per mag. So you kind of got to go with what makes the most sense, but I think all 3 of them are really good options. We got the Welgun, which is the recoil, Gawain short, slate reflector, remove stock, acrobatic, quick, polymer, Gorenko 40, lengthen, and hand stop. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.